What's up, guys? This is Jrue Holiday, and you're listening to The Briefcase with Casey Holdahl.
Greetings, Blizzard fans, and welcome to The Briefcase presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. Episode 188 of The Briefcase presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. I am Casey Holdahl, and your Portland Trail Blazers bounced back after back-to-back losses to defeat the Atlanta Hawks Thursday at Moda Center. Bench changes the game in that game versus the Atlanta Hawks. A great game for Portland's bench, particularly late in the third quarter. Really the key to winning that game for Portland in that one. Starters really didn't seem to have much going on that night. Bench was able to come in and really make a difference. Trailblazers starting to get healthy at the right time, which is great to see. Multiple players have re-entered the lineup. Hopefully more players will be re-entering the lineup as we get closer and closer to the All-Star break in about a month from now. And young Hansen assigned to the remix multiple times this week on this edition of The Briefcase presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. Well, after the Trailblazers had their winning streak broken by the Knicks in the final game of a 5-game homestand last week, team heads to San Francisco to once again play the Golden State Warriors for the fourth and final time this season after winning the first three matchups. Unfortunately, the Trailblazers, just not enough players available in that one, end up falling 119-97 Tuesday night in San Francisco. Really not a whole lot to say about that game other than when you lose Deni Avdija and you don't have Jerami Grant or Chris Murray or Matisse Thybulle or Blake Wesley or Scoot Henderson or Damian Lillard, and with Jrue Holiday still on a minutes restriction, it's going to be pretty difficult to be competitive against a good team, particularly on their house when you have won the first three games of the series. And that is exactly what happened Tuesday night in San Francisco. The Trailblazers were not really able to provide much resistance in that game. You know, Thiago Splitter had talked about how he didn't feel like the team came out with the right energy in that game. And, you know, there's probably something to be said about that. But I also think, too, that when you lose Deni for the first time this season and you've already got a bunch of players who are already out with injury, I feel like that's kind of when you're about at your breaking point. Any team can win on any given night in the NBA, but particularly, you're not going to sneak up on the Warriors, who, again, you've beaten three times. If it was the other direction and the Blazers had lost three straight to the Warriors, you know, maybe the Warriors don't bring the requisite energy, or maybe they overlook the Blazers a little bit, and maybe Portland's able to kind of sneak in and steal that game. But when you've beat them the first three times of a 4-game series, you're on their floor, you're missing a bunch of guys. That one's going to be pretty difficult to get. Unfortunately, Trailblazers were not able to get that one. They go down early. They managed to get within 12 early in the third quarter, and that was legitimately as close as they ever really got in that game. One of those games where if someone went on an absolutely insane heater, and if the Warriors, for some reason, just completely broke down, maybe you got a chance in that one. But outside of a player having a historic performance, when you're down that many players, and even when you still got Jrue Holiday back in the lineup, but he's on a minutes restriction, it's just really going to be hard to get that one. And the Trailblazers, unfortunately, did not get that one. Shaedon Sharpe with 19 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal in 28 minutes. Caleb Love got the first start of his career. Congratulations, Caleb. Posted 17 points, 7 assists, 3 rebounds, 2 steals, and a block in 34 minutes. Jrue Holiday, as I mentioned, returning to the lineup, starting to increase his minutes, still under a minutes restriction after missing the last 2 months, give or take a little bit, with that calf injury. Jrue in that game came off the bench to start the game, then did start the second half, finished with 12 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists in 21 minutes. Rob Williams, 11 points, 8 rebounds, 1 block, 1 steal in 16 minutes. Rob Williams, that was actually the second straight game that Rob Williams shot perfect from the field and from three and from the line. I actually just looked it up with the game versus the Hawks. Rob in his last 3 games is 13 out of 14. Shooting 80% in the month of January for Rob Williams. Not a guy who takes a lot of shots, but obviously the shots that Rob does take are very good shots. Really liking the way that Rob's been playing as of late. I feel like he's really kind of rounding into form, hopefully able to stay healthy because he has been a lot of fun to watch. And it's just great to have Rob around. He is one of the best guys on this roster, both on the court and off the court. Great guy, Rob Williams. And Real Repair, kind of a little preheat maybe to what we saw the next game versus the Atlanta Hawks, had 13 points, 2 assists, 2 steals, and 1 rebound in 27 minutes in that game. So the Trailblazers lose that game, nationally televised game on NBC and Peacock, 8 o'clock start time on that one, so a very late arrival back into Portland on Tuesday night. I don't think we landed till, I think, after 2 o'clock. So the team gets in, has the day off, or at least has a light day the next day, and then right back at it versus the Atlanta Hawks on Thursday. Trailblazers able to bounce back to get that victory, 117-101 Thursday night at Moda Center. One of the few positives of enduring so many injuries this season is it's provided an opportunity for those deeper in the rotation to improve their skills and build confidence in minutes that they otherwise would not have seen this season. Portland benefited from that experience Thursday night versus the Atlanta Hawks. The Blazers, behind the performance of their bench, rallied late in the third quarter before pulling away in the fourth quarter to secure a 117-101 victory versus the Atlanta Hawks in front of a crowd of 16,196 fans Thursday night at Moda Center. The Blazers are now 20-22 overall, 11-10 at home, and have won 8 of their last 11 games. The Blazers have now won 3 straight versus the Atlanta Hawks and haven't lost to the Eastern Conference club since 2017 at home, which is pretty ridiculous. The Blazers, thanks in large part to Jrue Holiday returning to the starting lineup after missing the last 2 months due to injury, and Jerami Grant being cleared for the first time in over a month after experiencing a bout of Achilles soreness, led by as many as 11 points in the first half, but a drop from behind the three-point line. At one point in time, the Trailblazers missed 17 of 18 three-point attempts, would provide the Atlanta Hawks an opportunity to get back in the game, which they absolutely did. They outscored Portland by 10 in the second quarter to take a 56-54 lead into the half, and would then go up by 9 late in the third quarter. And at that point in time, it looked like perhaps the Trailblazers might not be able to get it done. However, a 10-0 run courtesy of Caleb Love, Dwop Reith, and Rayon Rupert would give the Blazers an 85-81 lead, and that was their first lead of the second half. The Hawks would then answer back, CJ McCollum hitting a three-pointer, and one other player, I think Jalen Johnson, also hitting a three-pointer to reclaim that lead, though Rayon would make a three-pointer at the buzzer to give the Blazers a one-point advantage going into the fourth quarter. And that same bench unit would then open the fourth on a 15-2 run to take a 103-89 lead with just under 9 minutes to play. And on the other end, the Blazers were able to hold the Hawks to 20% shooting from the field and 13% shooting from three to ensure that there would be no comeback for the visitors. Trailblazers securing that win thanks to the play of the bench and some very stout defense in the fourth quarter to come away with the win, to get back on the winning side of things, to start a stretch where they play 4 of their next 5 at Moda Center with a win. Shaedon Sharpe led the Trailblazers with 24 points on 8-15 shooting from the field, 6-6 shooting from 3 to go with 9 rebounds, 5 assists, and 2 steals in 33 minutes. Jerami Grant, who, as I mentioned, returned to the lineup for the first time after missing about a month of games, posted 16 points on 4-9 shooting from the field, 7-9 shooting from the free throw line to go with 3 assists, 2 blocks, 2 rebounds in his first game back. And I think really more than anything, the fact that Jerami was able to play, I think 23 minutes in that game, I think probably the best stat. I think that shows that, his return from play will probably be a little bit quicker than maybe Jrue's because just not out for as long and maybe able to do a few more things. Achilles soreness is not great, but with a calf strain, you kind of got to let it sit. Achilles, you can kind of play a little bit, and as long as it doesn't get sore, you can continue to play. I feel like Jerami really giving the Blazers something in that game, getting to the line, something that they really missed without Deni Avdija in the game versus the Warriors. Jerami able to get to the line, provide some easy buckets. Really glad to see Jerami back out there. Really glad to see the team was already kind of rounding into form, and now that they're able to get some of these guys back, I think some real reason to be optimistic about what the Trailblazers might be able to do here in the unofficial second half of the season. Rayon Rupert, arguably his best game of the season, 13 points on 5 of 7 shooting from the field, 3 rebounds, 3 steals, and 2 assists in 16 minutes for Rayon. Great game for Rayon Rupert. Great game defensively as well. Really liked what we saw out of Rayon. And it's always fun when a guy, those guys who don't necessarily get a lot of minutes, get an opportunity to play and not only do something with those minutes, but really affect winning. That bench unit, the Blazers do not win that game without Rob Williams, Dwop Reith, Rayon Rupert, and Caleb Love Thursday night at Moda Center. Jrue Holiday, who's still on a minutes restriction, but did start in the game versus the Hawks, finished with 12 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 steals in 20 minutes. Caleb Love, also with 12 points off the bench, while also getting 4 assists, 3 steals, 3 rebounds in 25 minutes. And then Toumani Camara added 11 points, Donovan Clingan with 12 rebounds in that game. If you look at the box score of that game as well, I think 3 of the starters finished in the minus. I think one guy was at even, and I think maybe Shaedon was like +2. And then you look at the bench, it's, Rayon, Dwop, Rob, Caleb. I think all those guys were like at least +20 in that game. So really just it's always great to see a win. It's really nice to see this team. Again, it seems like they're starting to really kind of get some things figured out. A much more consistent team right now, I would say, than they were a month ago. And when you have guys who are further down the roster who get an opportunity and then really, take advantage of it and really do something with it, I think that's always really fun to see. So a fun night at Moda Center to get Trailblazers off to this 4 out of 5 at home with a win. They'll also host the Lakers on Saturday before playing the Kings in Sacramento on Sunday, second out of a back-to-back, and then 3 days off, and then another back-to-back versus the Heat and the Raptors before heading out for a 3-game Eastern Conference road trip. So a chance for the Blazers to get healthy, get some wins, and maybe get a little momentum going into that road trip. But either way, Blazers playing much better basketball right now, hovering at 500. I think getting to 500 by, the All-Star break would be a really good thing for this team. And I think when you start looking at some of the games and how they're scheduled out, maybe a chance to do a little bit more than that. So either way, really feels like there's some momentum or at least something building for the Trailblazers right now. They're playing much better basketball. And it really feels like if they're able to get some guys back, which seems to be the case, who knows what this team can do in the second half of the season. Whether you're looking for a quick bite or fine dining, Spirit Mountain Casino has the food specials you've been craving. From creamy mac and cheese pizza to savory tri-tip smoked sandwiches, Spirit Mountain Casino is ready for you to indulge. Casino, hotel, dining, shows, everything you want at Highway 18 in Grand Ronde at Spirit Mountain Casino. Elevate your game. Well, as I mentioned, not only is it exciting the way the Trailblazers have been playing as of late, but the fact they seem to be getting healthier. Also, another reason to be very optimistic about what this team might be able to do going forward. After 2 months of losing players, seemingly to various injuries throughout those 2 months, Blazers finally getting guys healthier at the midway point of the season. Jrue Holiday, as I mentioned, has returned after missing 2 months with a calf strain. He played the last 3 games and has increased his minutes in every game. And if there's no setbacks, you would imagine that he'll be back to his regular minutes allotments, perhaps even by the back-to-back versus the Heat and the Raptors. Obviously, it depends on how he feels after these run of games. Not entirely sure what the plan is for some of these guys in the back-to-back versus the Lakers and the Kings, but either way, really encouraging what we've seen out of Jrue Holiday. Really seems like he's not having any issues from that calf strain. Hopefully able to continue ramping up his minutes. He's already back in the starting lineup, and you would assume that if there's no setbacks, he will continue to get back to those minutes, as I mentioned, probably by sometime next week. Jerami Grant, as I mentioned, playing his first game versus the Atlanta Hawks after missing a month with Achilles soreness. He said after the game that he was feeling great and that, he was experiencing some soreness, and those kind of injuries are not really the kind of injuries that you should be playing through, which is why the decision was made for him to rest for a while. It seems like he's doing much better now. Assuming no setbacks there, it seems like he's probably on the same timeline as Jrue at this point. Missed half as much time, so his return to play maybe won't take as long as Jrue's. I would imagine that, again, he'll probably play reserved minutes or at least, have his minutes limited for the next couple games. But with those 3 days off next week, I think that gives everyone a chance to rest and recuperate and to get a few practices in even. And then at that point in time, when they get to that back-to-back, perhaps he will be back to his regular minutes allotment as well. And then Deni Avdija missed the last 2 games after tweaking his back in the loss versus the Knicks. He was originally listed as doubtful for the game versus the Hawks. Then later on in the afternoon, his status was downgraded to out. But that's a pretty good sign that he was even listed as doubtful at some point in time for that game on Thursday. Anyways, not sure if he'll end up playing in the back-to-back versus the Lakers and the Kings. We'll obviously find out what his status is going into that game versus the Lakers on Friday afternoon. But even if he doesn't play in those games, again, they got 3 days off. And at that point in time, if he doesn't play versus the Lakers and the Kings, and I'm not saying he won't, I think if Deni feels like he's healthy enough to play, he's going to play. He's a guy who doesn't want to take games off. And I think he was already, I think it's the team is probably having to protect Deni from himself a little bit. Obviously, he wants to play. He's been playing great. His All-Star candidacy has been going great, but probably not the worst thing in the world if Deni's able to get a few games off. And if he doesn't end up playing in the games versus the Lakers and the Kings, at that point in time, he'll have, I think, over 10 days to rest before that back-to-back at the end of next week. So we'll see kind of how that shakes out with Deni. But the fact that he was listed as doubtful, I think obviously a very good thing going into that Hawks game, even though he didn't play. That shows that he is making some progress there. And finally, no updates on either Scoot Henderson nor Matisse Thybulle. Not entirely sure where either one of those players is at in terms of their rehabilitation. I wouldn't be surprised if there was some kind of update coming for those guys sometime soon, but also at this point in time, Nothing really to say other than they continue to rehabilitate with the team at the practice facilities. So that's kind of where the Blazers are at in terms of their injuries. Things going in the right direction, not getting all the guys back just yet. And I guess actually, probably we should maybe check in a little bit on Blake Wesley to see where he's at in his recuperation. But either way, the Blazers are starting to get healthy, even if they're not going to maybe have all their players back here before, say, the All-Star break. And finally, a little quick update on young Hansen. Hansen has been signed to the Rip City Remix multiple times this week. He posted 22 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 blocks, and a steal in their 123-99 victory versus the Oklahoma City Blue on January 14th. He was back with the Blazers for Thursday's game versus the Hawks, though he didn't end up playing in that game, and has since been reassigned for Friday's rematch versus Oklahoma City Blue. Tip-off for that game is Friday, 6 p.m. at Chiles Center. Tickets available if you want to check out young Hansen, see how he's doing with the remix. Pretty fun Friday night to head up to the peninsula here in North Portland. Go to University of Portland, check out that game, see how Hansen plays. I suspect they'll recall Hansen for the back-to-back versus the Lakers and the Kings on Saturday and Sunday, though it's always possible he will be back with the remix for their Monday game versus the Memphis Hustle at Chiles Center. That's a 3 p.m. start time on Monday, so not entirely sure exactly what the plan is there, but I know they want to get Hansen more minutes. If it's with the remix, if it's with the Blazers, either way, they just want to make sure that he's getting more consistent minutes, playing consistent playing time. And I think we've seen with Hansen, every time he gets more minutes, he gets more and more comfortable, and it results in better play the next game. So really glad they're able to get Hansen some minutes with the remix. I would absolutely tell you to go check out that game Friday. Should be a fun one. Actually, any remix game is a lot of fun. If you haven't been up to University of Portland, check out the remix. I absolutely suggest you do. If you get to see Hansen, I think that's probably the best case scenario, but some pretty fun basketball being played there even when Hansen isn't there. And that's going to do it for this edition of The Briefcase. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, new editions next week, some time off next week, so maybe a chance to dig in a little bit deeper, maybe kind of do a little bit of a Blazers at the midway point of the season. We will see, but either way, please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast to the Blazers Balcony, The Briefcase, and to Travis Demers' podcast as well. Thanks so much for joining me. As always, I am Casey Holdahl. Go Blazers.